I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Welcome to the show. TGIF is Friday, so we got a great show for you guys ahead. We are going to talk about Ilhan Omar's Republican challenger, who seems to be in a little bit of trouble. I don't know if you know this. We also have a prediction about Bernie Sanders. That's interesting, but I'm going to give you some nuance and some context into it. So overall, it should be fun. Then we are going to talk about Elizabeth Warren. She's now taking Super PAC money, so lovely. We then have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her new PAC. What's going on with that? And then Lloyd Blankfien versus Bernie. Lots of fun. Okay, so with that, we started a little bit late. We had weird. So I'm having this weird problem whenever I create the stream. It doesn't seem to work, and then it creates, weirdly enough, like it comes up with an error and says couldn't create stream, and then it creates the stream anyway. And so, any of you, if you see like double streams, whatever coming in, or 2 or 3 streams, usually the one that's live is the best bet. So. And I will usually correct that and delete those extra streams, which is what I did earlier. That's why it took a little bit long, so to do that. All right. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's get to the first story here. We've got Ilhan Omar. Oh, by the way, before we do, please like and share. Also, you can get this lovely T-shirt by going to our Teespring store. It is right in the description of this stream. Okay. Now, I suppose we can. Here we go. I have pinned that in the chat, so you yourself can maybe take a look and get maybe one of these shirts. All right. That's if it freaking works. YouTube has been weird lately in some of the features not working. So, all right, anyway, jump into it. Representative Ilhan Omar will be facing several Republican challengers in her next election. So currently right now, you have Republicans that are campaigning in a primary election. So now one of those Republican challengers in a primary seems to be making the other Republicans in the race a little bit nervous. So now her name is Danielle Stella. Danielle Stella. Danielle Stella kind of rolls off the tongue. Danielle Stella, sorry. Now she is not only running against Ilhan Omar, but she's also running from law enforcement. This is an insane story. All right, so according to the Daily Beast, she not only is running from the law while running for against Ilhan Omar or against these Republicans in a primary, she seems to be raising a lot of money, which makes me wonder why she felt the need to shoplift. Allegedly, of course. Now, she's raised about $84,000 while being wanted for one count of felony shoplifting. So, look, that's disastrous, but that's not the only reason you have other Republicans that are not happy. So we'll go to her Republican opponent, candidate Lacey Johnson, one of several other Republicans in the race. Now, she says that Stella's negative headlines, as well as her apparent belief in QAnon, so craziness, could undermine the rest of the candidates by painting them all as insane. Quote, candidates are reflections of the party in a way, and it's not a good reflection of the party in a sense. It kind of felt like I was reading something from Pete Buttigieg right there, because it's a lot of words to say almost nothing. It's almost as if she's really afraid to criticize heavily this person, right? Well, I mean, it kind of reflects, but it reflects in the party, but, not a good reflection. That's about as harsh as she can get. I don't know, if it were me, it'd be like, criminal. That person's straight up criminal. You're going to vote for that? She crazy. But then again, Republican base is kind of crazy, right? Now, she also added, but now being in politics, you do learn that people do have all kinds of ways of looking at things. Milk toast, let me tell you. And I thought corporate Democrats were bad. No. Corporate Democrats are incredibly strong against progressives. Corporate Democrats are incredibly weak against Republicans. And apparently, establishment Republicans are super afraid of the insanity inside their base. So, now, their concern, as I noted, is that this insane person, clearly insane, and I call her insane because she believes in QAnon. Like, that is the conspiracy theory that Donald Trump is fighting a secret cabal of Democrats in the government that is the deep state that is running giant pedophile rings. Look, man, were there powerful people in powerful positions that, had some pedophilic predilections? Yeah, of course. One of them is Henry Hastert. What was it? Hastert. Dennis Hastert. Sorry. I don't know why I called him Henry for some reason. I believe it was Dennis Hastert. And then there was Jeffrey Epstein. And so, look, it's not a stretch to think that these people would be attracted to power, but to say that there's an entire cabal running secret Pizzagate-like pedophile rings in basements and all that, no, that's crazy. Insanity. And again, aside from Jeffrey Epstein and the mysterious circumstances of his supposed suicide, there's not really any evidence to show that that's a thing, right? Anyway, now, the reason that these Republicans are worried isn't because of the insanity, right? No, it turns out that it's more of I'm trying to get other voters in favor of me, or to not have people turn out for Ilhan Omar, or else because, this district's hard enough to win already without crazy people making it more difficult for us. And Ilhan Omar, of course, it's a very Democratic district, and so she is very likely to win anyway. And so any advantage that these Republicans are trying to get, they're going to get, right? Now, the Beast notes that Stella's dabbling in conspiracies had already a negative effect. Police were called to a hotel in Wisconsin after people flooded the hotel with phone calls after another YouTube conspiracy theorist. I almost said fellow because fellow YouTuber. Then I was like, wait, no. YouTube conspiracy theorists. We do not do conspiracies on the show. This conspiracy theorist with 50,000 subscribers, by the way, speculated that Stella was in unspecified danger at the location. Maybe she was in danger of being arrested, but I doubt it. Okay. Now, she also got her Twitter account for the campaign suspended by sharing a rumor about Ilhan Omar being an Iranian government asset and calling for her to be tried for treason and executed, by the way. She added the executed part. Really? Really? Look, man, okay. Where do you even start with that, right? No, she's a Somali refugee. It has nothing to do with Iran. Ridiculous. Anyway, and so, look, the Republican establishment is very concerned. They're very nervous because the base eats it up. And so, like, to understand the dynamics in the Republican Party, you have to understand that most Republican politicians are generally sane people, right? And I know you might think, no, come on, dude, what, really? I say most. There are some definitely notable crazy people inside of the Republican Party, but the Republican establishment, they're all just a bunch of rich people that are like, how can we help corporations? And how can we, help ourselves get money from corporations? I mean, that's generally the Republican establishment, right? But the Republican base, has gotten whipped into a froth because in order to continue voting against your own best interests when it comes to financial issues, they've had to invent crazier and crazier narratives as to why you shouldn't support Democrats. And so, hey, man, you can't support Democrats. It went from because you can't, you don't want your taxes to go up. Okay, look, that's, I guess, a reasonable argument that you can make. It's definitely not in crazy land, even if it's not necessarily true in a lot of cases. Or, oh, look, you shouldn't vote for Democrats because they're gonna make more regulations, and that's gonna negatively impact you if you're trying to start a business, for example. Okay, another reasonable argument, you could debunk it fairly easily, but at least it's an argument that you can make. It went from those arguments in the Republican Party to now the Democrat that's running against me is a literal foreign agent that is here to disrupt America and to bring Sharia law. That's the kind of crazy that's here, right? Because their policies hasn't changed. Deregulation, tax cuts, right? But the base, in order to swallow that stuff, has had to get subjected to more and more brain fuckery, basically is all I can put it, right? And I apologize for the language, but that's what they're doing. They're basically spreading insane conspiracies about the Democrats in order to push their economic and social agenda, which is less rights for women, less rights for African Americans, minorities, and more rights for corporations and more tax cuts. That's it. That's really the goal here. So now, what Stella is she's a result of years of that ridiculous conditioning, where now she is running and she actually, I think, legitimately believes this stuff and is like, holy crap. Now she's running in order to stop that, which does not actually exist. And that is scaring the crap out of establishment Republicans who are still trying to count on bringing moderates and people that are unaffiliated in to vote for Republicans. But she can't go too far because then she'll alienate her own base. And so there's all that. Okay. But look, here's the thing. They make up all this stuff. And by the way, you look at anything, any reply to anything that Ilhan Omar says on Twitter, and believe me, it's bad. It's harassment, threats, terrible stuff, insane conspiracies, etc. But that's not even the main thing, right? She also, and I'm going back to Stella here, is facing a warrant for her arrest, which included allegedly stealing over $2,000 worth of stuff from Target. Hey, but it's Ilhan Omar that's the bad person. Insane, right? And so these other Republicans are afraid that their base will vote for a criminal, insane person. I mean, look, it's reasonable to think, based on the explanation I gave you earlier, and also based on the fact that we have a criminal conspiracy theorist in the White House who doesn't care about law and order or rule of law at all. Now, Johnson said that as a candidate, anyone facing an arrest warrant would no doubt face complications while running for office. One of them being, how could you show up to a debate when you're literally running from the law? Now that's that's a good question, right? But you think this person is going to be able to hold a coherent debate without going into Pizzagate or something insane? No, of course not. But see, that helps her. Not being able to show up to a debate means she doesn't get challenged on her insane views at all. And so she can also claim that, no, it's not my fault. It's the deep state that is keeping me from debating my opponents. Therefore, you should continue to support me and vote for me. And so maybe make it so that I won't get arrested. I don't know, man. It's probably a win for her anyway. Imagine, though, if she does win her primary and then doesn't show up to a debate with Ilhan Omar. Omar's going to wipe the floor with her. She's already, the favored candidate in the district. But if the Republican voters end up putting up an insane alleged criminal, well, it's pretty much over. Okay. Fun times. Moving on here. By the way, Sarge Tech, there's some quotes here in the chat that I want to get to. Comments from you guys. And I love it here. Let's see. Sarge Tech says, Ilhan Omar, we're going to impeach the MFer. She was right. And we just did it in the wrong way. Because, Republicans, right? They're afraid of their jobs. It's the same phenomena, right? Republican base loves Donald Trump. And so these establishment Republicans who do not like Donald Trump at all are too afraid to do the right thing and vote in favor of impeachment. Except for, I guess, Mitt Romney. Who, by the way, Paul Ryan just came and threw under the bus and said, I don't agree with that vote. Yeah, of course you wouldn't. Even when you have nothing to lose or nothing to gain. Paul Ryan still cannot find it within his cold, dead heart to go and actually do the right thing. Right? Insanity. Rashida Tlaib. You're right. You're right, James. How did I not know that? I do know that. I just messed that up. Okay, anyway. Not a good look today. All right, moving on. Okay, here we go. A candidate prediction site is now showing that Bernie Sanders is going to take the nomination in a landslide. So now this site is called Predict It. Now it values candidates as stocks. So it's kind of a weird thing, right? So you're going to see it not measured in points, but you're going to see it measured in cents. Okay. So now this site showed Senator Bernie Sanders winning the Democratic nomination by a very large margin. So how it works is Predicted has data on the value of each candidate and how it increases or decreases over a period of time. So it's kind of like their own little stock market, right? The value of each candidate rises as the market moves in their direction. And what makes the market move is, of course, debate performances and polling metrics. So now, as of Thursday, Predicted showed that Sanders was now priced at 53 cents. That's actually supposed to be a good thing, which is 35 cents over New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg, who is valued at second with 18 cents. Now, remember, in real life, Bloomberg is actually worth over $60 billion. So it is kind of funny to see him worth, in this context, 18 cents. Super funny, right? Now, following the debate, Sanders' stock value went up from 42 to 53 cents, while other candidates have stagnated or have fallen to under 20 cents. In a 90-day period, it's pointed out that Sanders has been in a steady rise since November of 2019, overtaking Joe Biden in late January of 2020, and then skyrocketing afterwards. So now, background information here. We'll talk about Predicted, right? Now, Predicted is a research project at Victoria University of Wellington, which is a not-for-profit university. Now, Brandy Travis, the spokesperson for Predicted, explained the accuracy of the model for the Democratic nomination. They said, our traders' knowledge and attention to every detail and their ability to digest even the most seemingly innocuous publicly available information about the political news they're invested in are one of the significant strengths of Predicted. Because of that, when you watch their markets, you will see that our traders can pick up on trends earlier and in a more quantifiable way than other sources of information from polling to pundits. And when it comes to outcomes, our model is approximately 85% accurate in predicting what will happen in political events. So, from what I can understand, is that the people that are participating in Predicted are basically betting on candidates, right? Based on what they see. And right now, you have more people that are betting on Bernie Sanders based on polls, based on his debate performances, and other metrics. And so understand that these are a bunch of people around betting who's going to win. Again, a lot like the stock market, right? So that shows that there are people out there that generally believe that Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. I'm one of those people, but I don't have access to Predicted. So I actually can't make my vote or bet or whatever, right? Nonetheless, these trends, again, have shown that Bernie Sanders is now the front runner. And that also helps, by the way. When you achieve front runner status, immediately everybody thinks, oh, this guy's going to win, or has a very, very good chance of winning. So now, according to 538, some of the polls that they're based on, Sanders has a double-digit lead to his competition in the Democratic primary field, polling at Tuesday at about 26.8%. Biden has 15%. Elizabeth Warren and Mayor Pete come in at third and fourth at 11%. Now, Nevada caucuses are next, so we'll see what happens. But Predicted says Sanders has going to continue by winning Nevada. So this is interesting. If anything, I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in political predictions because basically that entire thing got ruined back in 2016 when you had a lot of predictions that Hillary Clinton was going to win, right? But again, don't take big stock in this because there's a ton of factors. And I think the real usage of these prediction models is to actually more influence public opinion. I think that's the biggest takeaway that you can get from a lot of these prediction sites because you never know what's going to happen. But you can say, hey, look, there's a lot of people that think that Bernie Sanders is going to win, that he's electable. And that adds to the idea of people thinking, okay, well, this person actually is electable. Well, that's wonderful. So Nonetheless, that's no substitute for knocking on doors, making calls, text banking, or any of that really important stuff. Far more important than sitting back and thinking, and far better for the campaign than sitting back and thinking, don't worry, we got this. Because again, that was Hillary Clinton's biggest fault, is that she basically sat back and said, don't worry, I got this. Nobody's ever going to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? Oops. So there was a lot of hubris in that campaign, and we would be wise to not repeat that mistake when it comes to Bernie Sanders, especially when he's doing so well. And this is positive news. But I want to go back to something that Kyle Kulinski said. So he's the host of Secular Talk. It's an amazing show. If you haven't already, subscribe to that. What he said is we need to act like we are 10 points behind. So even though polls come out and say Bernie Sanders has got a double digit, he's got a commanding lead, we should be approaching this as if we are losing. And that means, working hard, continuing to work hard to try to elevate our candidate and to make sure we win by a landslide. And so, because what the danger is here, and it was revealed on debate stage on Wednesday. It was revealed on the debate stage in Nevada that a lot of Democrats on the stage would support the nightmare scenario that is the brokered convention, which means a candidate comes in, he's got the plurality of votes, but not enough to hit 50%. That would mean that in the second round, the superdelegates could come in and steal the nomination from Bernie Sanders. And so that is the nightmare scenario, and that certainly could happen. So in order to make it not happen, you have to make sure that the vote comes out in such overwhelming numbers that it's impossible to screw Bernie Sanders out of the nomination. There has to be absolutely no question. None. So never get relaxed, never get complacent, and remember to never really fully trust predictions or polls, especially when there is so much riding on the nomination of Bernie Sanders. Okay. Ravaging Wolverine, by the way, makes a great point here and says, I said at the beginning before the stream, landslides only become reality if people turn out to vote in large numbers. Make it happen. That's been my message all along. Turn out, make sure you turn out, overwhelming numbers. That is the only way that we're ever going to win this. Okay. E. Joseph Apagard Peltier III says this guy is going door knocking tonight. Yes, do it. Heroes, all of you. People who go out there and knock on doors and make phone calls. That's right. All right. Moving on here. Let's go to Elizabeth Warren. In a change that's already going to bring major criticism, rightfully so, to her campaign, Elizabeth Warren has decided to finally start accepting super PAC money. So now it's not as if the money from the super PAC goes directly to the candidate, but it allows these political action committees to go and air ads on behalf of candidates. So now the group that is backing Elizabeth Warren is called Persist PAC. And it was just created to support her presidential campaign, according to a new report by BuzzFeed. So now they noted that in this, it was a change so sudden that Warren's own campaign website still says that she rejects all super PACs and would disavow any super PAC form to support her in the Democratic primary. So understand, that's what her website still says. And yet, just today, she comes out and says, actually, you know what? Super PAC, perfectly fine. In fact, I'll show you the video here. But first, look, man, here we go. Elizabeth Warren making another terrible campaign decision. And it unfortunately is happening so soon after she dominated in that Nevada debate. Look, I call it fair. I'm for Bernie Sanders. You guys know this. But I think she absolutely crushed in that last debate, and she won. Bernie Sanders did, of course, good to be expected from the front runner. Shrugged off some attacks, even some from Elizabeth Warren, but Warren really shined in that debate. And so, fresh off that performance, what does she go and do? Well, she goes and attacks Bernie Sanders and then starts taking super PAC money. Ridiculous. All right, now, here, let me give the reason here that she says that she is now taking super PAC money. Take a look.
Senator, do you want the super PAC supporting you to stand? Do you want the super PAC supporting you to stand down?
So look, the first day I got in this race over a year ago, I said I hope every presidential candidate who comes in will agree. No super PACs for any of us. I renewed that call dozens of times, and I couldn't get a single Democrat to go along with me. Finally, we reached the point a few weeks ago where all of the men who were still in this race and on the debate stage all had either super PACs or they were multi-billionaires and could just, rummage around in their sock drawers and find enough money to be able to fund a campaign. And the only people who didn't have them were the two women. And at that point, there are some women around the country who said, that's just not right. So here's where I stand. If all the candidates want to get rid of super PACs, count me in. I'll lead the charge. But that's how it has to be. It can't be the case that a bunch of people keep them and only one or two don't.
That's how it has to be. I mean, I said I was going to reject super PACs, and then I decided, since nobody else will join me on that, it's just me and Amy Klobuchar. Well, then I have to take super PAC money. No, it's the fact that her campaign is actually desperate for money. Even so, after the debate, she raised about $2.8 million. But going into Super Tuesday, you got to understand, Super Tuesday states are pretty expensive to run ads in, especially the market of California. And so she's like, well, I don't have the campaign money. I'm not getting enough. So I'm just going to let my super PAC do it for me. And so that is a definite shift in that position. And it is born of desperation because her campaign is basically running out of steam. And we're completely honest about that, right? So now my problem here is hypocrisy, because she did say, well, I'm the only one other than, I'm the only other person. I mean, we got a whole bunch of men up there that are taking super PAC money, and it's just me and Amy Klobuchar that aren't. But wait a minute, you're calling what supports Bernie Sanders super PACs. Now, hold on here. Now, there is groups that support Bernie Sanders. You have the nonprofit PAC, Our Revolution. Now, Our Revolution can raise unlimited sums of money. That is true. Are they raising it from billionaires? No. It's not a super PAC. It doesn't have to disclose the donors, but if it did, the average donation would likely be around $18. From regular people like Joe down the street. Now, Sanders is also supported by another, what they call big money group. No, it's the Nurses United, right? That is the National Nurses Union. Now, that is a super PAC, and they did spend $5 million backing him in 2016. But here's the thing. None of the money in these PACs are corporate money. These are not corporate PACs. I mean, if you think that Our Revolution is the same as Joe Biden's PAC, for example, well, that's preposterous. That's not true at all. You think the nurses are raising money from big corporate donors? No. A majority of their money actually comes from union dues from their membership. They haven't actually also in the cycle made any independent expenditures on behalf of Bernie Sanders. So they haven't. Sunrise Movement also being pointed out as another so-called big dark money group. Oh, right? Actually, most of the donations from the Sunrise Movement come from the Sunrise PAC, which gets donations from individuals of about less than $1,000. So these are people who do care about the environment that are giving to Sunrise. So now, what is Sunrise doing with their money? Are they doing independent expenditures on favor of Bernie Sanders? And by the way, I don't even know if our revolution is doing any independent expenditures in favor of Bernie Sanders, right? And that's also important. So now, what Sunrise Movement is spending their money on is on travel, which, by the way, at every single Bernie Sanders rally and every progressive gathering, I have seen Sunrise Movement there. Well, somebody's paying for that. That's, of course, what the group is raising that money for, right? So they spend it on travel, lodging, staff, food, and of course, some Facebook ads. Okay. That are, of course, showcasing the activism of their members. None of that's really independent expenditures. And so, look, this super PAC, by the way, where, Elizabeth Warren is now accepting their help, right? They are planning to run ads. They're planning to run tens of thousands of dollars in ads in Super Tuesday states. So it is actually a lot different than what Bernie Sanders is doing and the groups that support Bernie Sanders is doing. And so that is very important, okay? To compare all this again with Biden's PAC or Pete Buttigieg's wine cave and all the bundlers, it's really ridiculous, okay? I mean, what is Bernie Sanders going to accuse, or I'm sorry, is Elizabeth Warren going to accuse Bernie Sanders of taking donations from Big Poor? I mean, because that's a big group. I mean, made up of people that are like warehouse workers, that work in the Amazon or people from Target or school teachers. You can take it from Big School PAC. No, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. But look, I don't know who's funding Persist PAC, by the way. Could be supporters of Elizabeth Warren. It could be corporate supporters of Elizabeth Warren. I don't necessarily know who, but also could be billionaires. I could definitely imagine somebody like Tom Steyer, if he drops out of the race, putting some money towards Elizabeth Warren. Why? Because, look, Tom Steyer, yes, he made a lot of his money off some fossil fuel investments and things like that, but he's also given to a lot of liberal progressive causes. And so I do not see Tom Steyer giving money to Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders would give it right back, as he has from other millionaire donors and billionaire donors, right? And so it could likely go into Elizabeth Warren's campaign. Because look, Tom Steyer is basically there in South Carolina, and then he's going to drop out. I don't understand why Tom Steyer thinks that he has any sort of path to the nomination, but no, he's not trying. So he's not actually running a real campaign. And so I think it's just to raise some attention, maybe get some of the, split up some of the vote. I don't know. I don't know why Tom Steyer is running. I don't get it. Maybe all he wanted was a selfie with Bernie. Then again, it doesn't make sense that now he's running ads against Bernie. And so, but anyway, look, I'm not going to talk about Tom Steyer anymore. All right. But again, I don't know who's funding Persist PAC. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there are other liberal, minded billionaires who think that Elizabeth Warren is a safer option. Who knows? And by the way, safe, I mean as in establishment friendly, more willing to play ball, malleable, right? As we've seen on her calls for Medicare for All, which started as Medicare for All and then went to a public option first and then maybe Medicare for All. No. So look, the hypocrisy here is, again, and let me give you a quote here from Elizabeth Warren before. She said, it's not a quote here, but it's a quote from an article about Elizabeth Warren. It basically pointed out that when dark money group Women Vote bought ads backing Warren back in Iowa, her campaign disavowed the organization's activities. To Politico, the campaign spokesperson said, quote, was not aware of this and asked that those involved immediately stop purchasing advertisements of any kind. Elizabeth Warren believes that democracy is undermined by anonymous dark money attempts to influence voters, whether that influence is meant to help or hurt her candidacy. So that's Elizabeth Warren back in Iowa. Now, she loses Iowa, and she does very poorly in New Hampshire, right? So those first 2 states, no momentum coming out of that, right? Does terrible. And so she doesn't get the boost. She doesn't get the fundraising. And now, later on, she's like, you know what, those super PACs, not so bad now. Not bad at all. And then now Bernie Sanders, again, he addressed his groups as well, because now he's getting criticized from Elizabeth Warren and from Pete Buttigieg as well about this. And he had told Chuck Todd back on February 9th that, quote, I don't really want help from outside groups, but it's legal. What can I do? They're there. I don't control them. So Bernie Sanders is saying, look, they're there. I mean, I don't really want them, but what can I do? And it's true, because super PACs and campaigns are not actually allowed to coordinate it all. And that's what I meant earlier when I was talking about Elizabeth Warren not having control over this either, but she won't disavow. And that is, again, completely opposed to her previous position, whereas Sanders, I think, has always been consistent. He's like, hey, look, I don't take money from billionaires. I don't take money from corporate PACs. And so if they, these groups that are made up of, and this is what's important about it. And he told Chuck Todd, by the way, that a lot of them are nurses, immigration activists, civil rights activists. Those are the people that make up the donors to those PACs that support Bernie. That's the difference, because they're not billionaires. So it's not really a reversal of his position at all. And so it's not the same as comparing it to Biden's super PAC or again, Buttigieg's wine cave. And so that's important. The context is important. And again, we don't know the donors to Persist PAC. And so I guess we got to wait for that to come in, if there is any information from it. We'll have to see. But for me, look, Warren, she's not doing well. So it seems like this is another bad faith attack from somebody who's trying so hard to regain the traction that she has lost. It's really kind of sad to see. Okay. All right, I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We got more stuff here. We got AOC taking on corporate Democrats, and then Lloyd Blankfien versus Bernie. This is always fun. All right, we'll be back. Run the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so first I want to give some shout outs. Patreon. Let's see. I want to thank Joe Swift and Janet Eason. So thank you. Patreon.com/TYT Nation is how you can sign up to support independent progressive media. we don't take corporate money. We don't have corporate money. We currently do not have any sponsors. And by the way, I would only sponsor something if I actually do believe in it and actually have used it. And so I'm not saying that I won't take sponsors, but I actually have to trust the company, and I actually have to see that they're actually doing good. Like for example, if you have like a green energy conscious company that actually doesn't screw over its employees, pays a fair wage, and there's a whole list of conditions, right? But currently, maybe that explains why I don't have any, because I have such stringent requirements. But if I'm going to put my, if I'm going to put my name on something or anything, I want it to be representative of my values. And so, but yeah, we don't have any of that. All we have is funding from you guys. We got the t-shirts and stuff through our Teespring. We got patrons, and then we've got channel membership, and then just YouTube ads. And so we need your help. Definitely need your help to continue, because those YouTube ads, they are they're not doing well. So we'll just say that. All right. Let's move on here. We'll go to super chat questions here, or comments. Sarge Tech says Bernie will be the nominee. Revolution, Medicare for all. And Jedi Protector says the Republican base has been indoctrinated by Fox News and Donald Trump over the past 5 years. I would say that it's been a little bit longer than that. I think they've been doing this for like the last 20 years. And really setting the stage for Donald Trump by saying the news, you can't trust the news, liberal bias, not bias, of course, leads to fake news and all that stuff. So, yes, Tia, I endorse cats. Very good cats. Okay. By the way, the cat is doing very well. He's such a good kitty. All right. Anyway, David Richardson says Trump is attacking the Parasite Oscar win. I guess he's mad about the movie forcing him to read. Yeah, you think Donald Trump's going to sit through subtitles? Anything subtitled? Hell no. Hell no. It is kind of hilarious imagining him try. Okay. Anyway. Ravaging Wolverine, by the way, says there's less money in honesty. There's like no money in honesty. And so like that's why progressive media has such a hard time. There's no money backing us. There's nothing. There's no big corporation that thinks, oh no, yeah, we should totally have more taxes on us and more regulations. Or there's no media company, right, that says, hey, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go against all the TV donors and actually, the people who try to buy ads from us, the campaigns. Yeah, we're gonna just go against them and try to get money out of politics. Doesn't happen. Would never happen. And so, yeah, there is no money behind progressivism and progressive news. And so, like, if you want to get rich, be a conservative or be a corporate Democrat. There's really not a lot of money in this. But you know what? What there is there's community, right? And that's what's most important. Connecting with people and representing people who don't get represented. And that's what I feel like I do a good job of, because, representing regular people, because that's what I am. Like, I worked in factories for over a decade. I've worked in retail. I've stocked shelves. I'm a regular. I've lived on Section 8 and used food stamps before. And so, yeah, I've been there. And I haven't been as poor as, other people, of course. But Ben Dixon, for example, he's got a hell of a poverty story to share. But I think my experience, it does help. It does help. All right. Anyway, somebody's got to go out there and speak for working people. Somebody, I guess I'll do it because I have that experience. Okay. So let's go on. Let's speaking of representing working people, let's go to AOC. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is taking on corporate Democrats by not only endorsing, but supporting progressive candidates through a new political action committee. So now the New York Times on Friday has reported that AOC has made actually 7 endorsements of an all-female slate of progressive candidates from her PAC named Courage to Change. So now that's interesting. Now, she says that one of the primary goals, and this was an interview with the New York Times, is to reward political courage in Congress and also to help elect a progressive majority in the House of Representatives. So courage to change, right? So by making this PAC for progressives, for people who support the progressive agenda, not only are you freeing Democrats from the DCCC, which is your corporate Democrat fundraising arm, you're freeing them from that, but you're also supporting up-and-coming candidates in their primaries. So I think this is an excellent idea. And she, of course, elaborates on this. She says, there's kind of a dual nature to this. One is opening the door to newcomers, and the other is to reward members of Congress that are exhibiting very large amounts of political courage. Now, again, as I said, the DCCC, look, one of the things that they did is that they cut off people who are primarying other Democrats. They said, we're not going to give you any money or any sort of support. In fact, what we're going to do is that we're going to support your opponent. We're going to support the incumbent. And that's even if it's somebody like Joe Manchin or, Henry Cuellar, who, by the way, Cuellar, he votes like 70% with Donald Trump. The DCCC Democratic groups are still backing this guy in Texas. Now, one of the people that are running against Cuellar is Jessica Cisneros, and she's one of the women that had been previously endorsed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so that's important. So this PAC is a foil to the DCCC, and I love it. Now, in the committee's first slate of endorsements, you have 7 women, including Cristina Ramirez, who's a labor rights and voting rights activist, running against a candidate endorsed by Senate Democrats' campaign arm, MJ Hagar, to take on Senator John Cornyn. 3 others, Teresa Fernandez in New Mexico, Samilas Lopez in New York, and Georgette Gomez in California, are running for open seats in Democratic districts. Kara Eastman, challenging Representative Don Bacon, Republican of Nebraska, for the second time. Marie Newman's running against Representative Daniel Lipinski, who is the anti-choice Democrat, by the way. And, of course, as I mentioned, Jessica Cisneros versus Henry Cuellar. Now, I urge you to look into these candidates and to support these candidates as best as you can. There's a lot of these local races that don't get a lot of attention. Half the time, I don't even hear of them. And so, it is important to support these candidates so that they can grow and really help push forward the progressive agenda, not only at the local level, but also on the congressional level as well. So now, Democratic strategists have weighed in on this, and their take's interesting. One said that AOC, by doing this, could, quote, shape the terrain for congressional candidates in powerful ways. I love it. They also added, we've never seen somebody break into the scene with this amount of potential and ability to drive the conversation and drive financial commitments from supporters. The challenge for her is determining where she wants to spend her capital. Now, understand that this quote comes from Ian Russell, a former deputy executive director of House Democrats' campaign arm, which would be, of course, the opposite of this PAC that is supporting progressives. That House campaign arm supports corporate Democrats and incumbents, right? So I love how they look at this, right? You've got potential and you're driving the conversation and financial commitments, but how's that going to help her political capital, right? It really matters where she puts it, because what we see normally with candidates is that they use their capital, right, in order to help themselves and increase their own power. That's what the establishment normally does. And so that's that perspective, right? And endorsements and other, supporting other candidates financially and campaigning for other candidates is one of those things that a lot of corporate Democrats will consider politically risky. So they'd have to weigh the pros and cons, and they think, oh, but is this going to help me later? Can I ask for favors from that politician? It's super cynical. It's super gross, but it's the environment. Now, one thing is that, and I'll give you an example, right? So now Ro Khanna is a great progressive. He's quoted in this article. Ro Khanna did not originally endorse Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He actually supported didn't actually support her opponent, but decided not to get involved in the race at all. So no endorsement towards AOC. Now that's interesting, right? Because Joe Crowley had actually helped Ro Khanna get into office. Again, Ro Khanna is super progressive. Joe Crowley helped with that. And so it just kind of shows you the weird environment. Nonetheless, you had Ro Khanna saying this, quote, Alexandria is a real political talent. She's made an enormous impact in the Green New Deal, and I predict she will be governor or senator in the near future, and then it's off to the races after that. And so he's got a lot of faith in AOC, and of course helps her out when it comes to policy, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like, look, I didn't, obviously I was not in favor of you or your opponent, but you over your opponent. But now that you're here and you're progressive, well, of course I have nice things to say about you, not because I want to use you for something, but I actually do agree with your policy. And so that's interesting, right? So now the environment is pretty gross. AOC, of course, wants to just generally believe in change. She wants not just an advantage for herself, but for the movement. And ultimately, it's the policies that's what's most important to all of them. That's why she has pledged to elect working class champions, especially ones not beholden to corporate money. So now AOC gets into more detail when she creates the PAC, about why she created the PAC. Quote, when community leaders, activists, and working class candidates try to run for office, organizations like the DCCC discourage them. These potential progressive leaders are asked, can you raise $300,000 from your friends or family? If not, don't bother trying. So it's important for us to create mechanisms of support because so much of what is happening in Washington is driven by fear of loss. We can really create an ecosystem that makes people more comfortable into making the leap to make politically courageous choices. So understand, these are all quotes from AOC. And she says, she explains, look, we just want to make it easier for people who are challenging the system to be able to run for office like it was supposed to be. You're not, it wasn't supposed to be the fact that you would be a millionaire, somebody who can raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because if you're not somebody who isn't already rich, well, then you have to go and beg donors, which makes you, of course, subservient in a way to the donors' whims. If you want to continue to get that money, and if you want to continue to, win your elections, you have to continue going back to that well. And with that comes certain expectations. And I know it's taboo to talk about it when it comes to Washington, but when people give you money, generally, it's not out of the goodness of their own heart. No, you want something. And even us, right? So if I give to a politician, it's because she is advocating for policies that will help me and my family, as well as every other American. For example, healthcare, right? There's a problem where 68,000 people die from lack of healthcare. I give my money in a campaign contribution to this candidate because they say, well, we're going to go to a Medicare for all system. That's going to help you. It's going to help your family. It's going to help reduce those amounts of deaths. And it's also going to be cheaper. So it's a win-win. It's amazing that these same people who actually make an argument that that's bad also say that, well, I mean, if you're going to criticize money in politics, corporations giving money and billionaires giving money, well, then you got to criticize you guys giving money too. But it's not the same thing. Because what we're doing is that we're giving a small amount of donations to these candidates, whereas these corporations make very large donations, and they do it in order to help themselves. in order to get lower taxes, in order to get less regulations, things like that. And so it is different because of the amount of money involved and the amount of influence one giant large donation from one entity or one group or one PAC versus a lot of smaller people. So, but anyway, now she wants to build solidarity in Congress, and imagine if she's successful, because it would be excellent. She says that while I think sometimes a lot of people see this as a huge amassing of influence or power or money or whatever, my personal experience does not feel that way. It can feel very lonely. I think my ambition right now is to be a little less lonely in Congress. So again, trying to build solidarity and trying to create a larger progressive presence in the House of Representatives. And imagine now if she's successful. Instead of a small squad, you have 100 people in the squad in Congress, right? People of different backgrounds, different races and experiences. Congress is only going to be enhanced by that, right? And will actually start to look more representative of the people. And so that is ultimately what she's trying to do. And I 100% support her in that. And you should too. All right. Moving on, we got one story here. I guess that kind of gives it away. And Ravaging Wolverine, by the way, makes my point a little bit better. Small donations are small enough not to have priority over their other small donations. And that's really it. It's really down to parity, right? One large donation of $1,000. Well, I mean, that's $1,000. That person's going to have more influence. But if you have 1,000 donations of $1 each, well, then that's different. Because you're going to take the majority opinion of that. I guess the influence of those 1,000 people into account, whereas a person getting $1,000 from one person, it's going to take that one person into account. So, thank you for that. All right. Former Goldman Sachs CEO and billionaire Lloyd Blankfien was recently refreshingly honest when he suggested that he would rather vote for Donald Trump over Bernie Sanders. So now, in an interview published today with the Financial Times, Blankfien said, quote, "I think I might find it harder to vote for Bernie than for Trump." I wonder what reason. Well, I can think of a billion. Now, at least they admit it, that they would rather have a fascist than a progressive. Look, Lloyd Blankfein calls himself a Democrat, thinks he's generally liberal. Well, this is proof that liberals would prefer fascists to progressives. So there it is. Now, he also says, "There's a long time between now and then. The Democrats will be working very hard to find someone who is as divisive as Trump. But with Bernie, they would have succeeded." Oh, Bernie, he's so divisive. He's so divisive, and he yells too much. He's so rude. Well, that's their excuse, but here's the thing. It's not at all true. You want to talk about divisive, right? Most of the base actually likes Bernie Sanders. Democrats like Bernie. They agree with his policy positions. That is literally why he is the front runner. He's getting the most votes. But look, there's a lot of people who liked him last time, right? You say, oh, well, he lost by 3 million votes to Hillary Clinton. That means nobody likes him. In fact, Hillary Clinton comes out and says, nobody likes him. I know it's in reference to Congress, which I guess would be true because he threatens to rain in their parade or crash their gravy train. But a lot of Democratic voters do like him. But last time, they were convinced by mainstream media and people like Hillary Clinton that, oh, no, look, I know you like Bernie Sanders, and I know you like his policies, but look, if you vote for him, you're Donald Trump. You're going to get Donald Trump. So you have to go with the safe option. right? You don't want Donald Trump, do you? Well, we see how that worked out. I mean, America sees how that worked out, how nominating a centrist who basically is face of the establishment and had no actual vision or good policy positions that were really bold out there to try to, solve some of the big problems. And they think, well, look, Bernie Sanders can win. Now he's the front runner. A lot of people like him. A lot of the policies I love. Yes, he can win. He can win. And the polls show Bernie Sanders, and they've been, and these polls have been pretty consistent since 2016, where Bernie Sanders beats Trump by the widest margin. And if, like a lot of Democrats polled, they say that beating Trump is the first concern, well, then Bernie Sanders has the best chance out of everyone. But people like Blankfien, they do not like that. No. Because they stand to pay a little bit more in taxes. Now, taxing the rich, of course, is incredibly popular. So they can't talk about that. And they really can't hit him on policy, as Pete Buttigieg just tried. Because again, 70% of Democrats and over 50% of Americans support policy like Medicare for all. So they go to Bernie Bros, dividing the party, and Bernie yells too much. He's too angry. Ridiculous. Now, other Democrats and billionaires have expressed concerns about Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who both have a wealth tax. Now, Bernie Sanders is a far more progressive wealth tax, and I actually believe that he would see it through. Elizabeth Warren, again, like a lot of the policies that Bernie Sanders has, aren't as progressive as Bernie Sanders, but generally tend to take us in a better direction, to be fair. So now these billionaires, they're speaking out, and they're saying, well, I don't like this. For example, we have the crying billionaire, Leon Cooperman. He says that Bernie Sanders is more of a danger than the coronavirus. Yeah. Okay. And also, we'll destroy the stock market. You also have Stephen Klubeck, who called Bernie Sanders an anarchist who would, quote, love to burn down the United States. Stephen Klubeck continues to go more and more insane. The more Bernie Sanders goes up in the polls, the more crazy he gets. And I mean Klubeck gets. How exactly is he an anarchist when you have people like James Carville actually calling Bernie Sanders a communist? He's not a communist. He's not an anarchist. He's a social democrat with FDR-style New Deal policies. Hilarious. But, of course, the big problem here is that Stephen Klubeck is worth $300 million. He does not want to get taxed. Now, there's more. Lloyd Blankfien, he's a billionaire, but don't dare try to call him a billionaire. He says, quote, I don't like that at all. I don't like assassination by characterization. This guy is worth billions of dollars, right? I don't know his exact net worth, okay? But he is a billionaire. Pointing that out is not assassination. I mean, you think, oh my gosh, like you think that's bad, right? Wait till you hear what they say about Bernie Sanders. Now, he continues by saying, I think it's un-American, again, calling me a billionaire. I find that destructive and intemperate. I find that it's just as subversive of the American character as someone like Trump, who denigrates groups of people who he has never met. Bernie Sanders, why are you going after the poor billionaires? You've never even met them. You've never even come to a fundraiser in a wine cave. So how could you say that about us, that we're billionaires? Because you are. Look, that's just, hey, look, you've got billions of dollars. You're a billionaire. There can be good billionaires, Well, okay, maybe not. But there are good millionaires, there are good rich people that do give money to great causes and have legitimately made their money without crushing people. I know because Bernie Sanders is worth $2.5 million. You know how he got that money? By writing a book. Actually, he's wrote a couple of books now that are bestsellers. And so he wrote books that people wanted to buy, and now he's got money. That's good. Now, what's not good is, again, being somebody who gets their money, and this is why I don't like billionaires, by the way. There's only one way to get $1 billion or over, and that's by extracting it from somewhere else. And that is the problem, right? That's really the issue. Okay. It's extracting and stealing the gains from labor instead of amassing $1 billion that should have gone back to your workers. It should have, in the form of wages and benefits. And so it is largely extractive. And that is why I don't think billionaires should exist. Billionaires are a policy failure. And that's why, of course, Lloyd Blankfien is like, how dare you say that I'm a policy failure, that I shouldn't exist? It's not that you shouldn't exist, Lloyd. It's that your billions of dollars shouldn't exist in your own pocket. It should be back into the workforce, you know, and back to the people so they can spend it on goods and services and create the virtuous cycle of our economy. That's the problem. And it's not doing that. So now, let's see. So now he talks about how terrible this is, and about how terrible Trump is, and yet it makes you wonder, why would he consider even voting for Donald Trump? Well, he gives it away by saying this, quote, "At least Trump cares about the economy." No, he doesn't. No, Trump doesn't care at all about the economy. I mean, he cares about using the economy to help himself. I mean, look, what Trump has done in office with the help of the Republicans and some corporate Democrats is that he's driven up massive deficits through tax cuts. And that's the usual thing, right? Oh, we're going to drive up the deficit with these massive tax cuts for corporations and rich people. And then when a Democrat gets into office, we're going to scream bloody murder about deficits and debts so that we will force a Democrat to cut important programs so that they will lose their elections and so that we can get back into power and cut corporate taxes and all that stuff again until corporations and the billionaires don't have to pay anything. That's the ultimate plan, right? And so kind of ridiculous to make that argument that he cares about the economy. And basically understand what Lloyd Blankfein's saying. I agree with the Republicans on economics. I agree with Trump on economics. Now remember, those tax cuts benefited the rich over 80%, right? 80% of the gains went to the richest Americans. You have wages that are stagnant. You have 40% of Americans who cannot afford a $400 emergency because that same number works in low wage jobs making around $18,000 a year. A year. The housing market sucks. People can't afford to buy. So it's, of course, a lot of private companies are going and buying up all the real estate so that then they can rent out to people and raise rents every single year and take up most of people's paychecks. You have student debt that's out of control. But Lloyd Blankfein thinks, no, this system's great. No, and it's not just Donald Trump, by the way. It is the corporate Democrats. It is people like Obama who are technocrats. And so what it comes down to is you have to have a progressive to fix that. Lloyd Blankfein thinks, no, what's there to fix? The economy's great. Me and my buddies, we're doing just fine. We're rich, but don't dare call us billionaires. But if we elect Bernie, well, then I'm going to get taxed more. But more importantly, being taxed more and being called the bad guy, well, it's going to hurt my feelings. Because it's going to prove that people don't actually like us and that we're not the center of the economic universe, as Nick Hanauer always points out. And so, but again, the reason that we don't like billionaires is because they are a policy failure. they are an example of a system that is broken that allows such obscene wealth to flow up to people who generally would still be very, very wealthy under a normal working system, but have extracted that money through labor or through money that should have gone, or wealth that should have gone to their labor. Nobody deserves $1 billion. It's a staggering amount of money to have. You don't earn that money. You extract it from people who actually do work for it. They know this, and now they're starting to get pretty angry that we're catching on. And so they would rather have someone like Donald Trump to continue to destroy the economy for regular working people than a progressive who actually wants to fix it. Because it's all about greed. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Please consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. Thank you for the super chats. Monica G, by the way, says, Jeff for Secretary of Labor. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that job, because I totally do that job. But I would have a lot of reading to do, a lot of study, and a lot of policy. I don't intend to go and trumpet. So, but yeah, awesome. Okay. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a great weekend. The Nevada caucus is tomorrow, so I think we might be talking about that in a little bit. I will definitely be tweeting about that and waiting, and hopefully the results are not like Iowa. If you are in Nevada, get ready to caucus. And hopefully it is not a raucous caucus like the last time. And so let's hope for, not only hope, but for a Bernie Sanders win. So, all right, anyway. Let's get out of here. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys on Monday.